Former White House press secretary, now turned NBC News contributor, Jen Psaki, dodged questions about Hunter Biden's looming troubles with federal investigators. The Washington Post reported last week that the feds confirmed they have enough evidence to charge the president's son. When asked about it on Sunday's Meet the Press, here's what she had to say.
I looked at a bunch of local front pages this morning, and if you look at the front page in Nevada, they're talking about Trump's rally there and what it means for candidates and turning out the vote. If you look at the front pages in Pennsylvania, they're talking about Mastriano. Does he have a grassroots campaign or movement going? And obviously Georgia is quite focused on every latest development in Herschel Walker. So the truth is, as much as there was so much news happening in Washington this week, it doesn't always translate, and often doesn't translate to what voters are talking about in states, and I think that's what we're seeing currently.
Federal investigators have had their eye on Hunter Biden for his international business deals with Ukrainian natural gas company Briahna, among others, but the charges that could be brought against him involve tax crimes and firearm crimes. So I'm not sure the point Jen Psaki made there made a lot of sense. I mean, just because the local papers in those places are more interested at this very moment in election news, including like the very salacious election news in Georgia, does that mean the people aren't interested in Hunter Biden? Is that what she was trying to suggest? I don't think that proves that.
It's circular logic. It's saying, let's not talk about this because the people aren't interested in it, but how are the people going to be interested in it if you don't talk about it so they know exactly what's going on? And it does seem like there's an increasing appetite for this, even among kind of mainstream liberal outlets.
It's only taken 2 years.
It's only taken 2 years. But there was an NBC story yesterday, you know, somebody wrote an op-ed saying the Trump family shadiness didn't mean Hunter Biden and his laptop deserved a pass. I mean, arguably there's an argument to be made that just completely conceding this, acknowledging it, saying that, you know, Democrats are acting, you know, ethically and not blocking this investigation, even though it's the president's own son, basically throw him under the bus a little bit, let the charges fall where they are. That will shore up Joe Biden in the longer run as he continues to try to investigate Donald Trump or any number of things that are going on. You know, you have this looming FBI investigation. You have people being very critical of the role of the FBI, sometimes in good faith and sometimes in bad. And this, I think, is a potentially very thorny issue for Biden, and I don't think it's going away.
Well, an investigation that settles on some kind of minor tax issue and a firearm issue,
charge,
I'm sorry, that's nothing. Like, that's not... We don't care about that. We want to know if he was influence peddling. We want to know who he told about his ability to lobby the big guy. Remember the big guy? That's what we care about. It doesn't, like, whatever. If investigators look at you for long enough, they can find something. If you have any amount of money, they can find something in your taxes to prompt further investigation. Then they can charge you with obstruction of justice when you don't, you know, give them all the answers they want immediately.
So are you agreeing with Psaki here that you think there's a nothing burger, or do you think it's only if it's limited to the firearm charge?
Yeah, I'm saying if this is all this is, it is a nothing burger. But because I think there is more to it, it's not a conspiracy. But it's if they focus on this and this is all it is, the investigators are not doing their job. They're not looking hard enough.
But what if, I mean, it does look.
I mean, we're suspicious of the investigators for good reason, because they slow rolled. We now know that whistleblowers have said they slow rolled this story at the same time that it was being suppressed on social media platforms and by the mainstream media, which took forever to concede that it even was a story. So there's a lot of bad faith on the part of the people, the gatekeepers of information here, have shown themselves to be really untrustworthy on this issue. So I'm having a hard time just accepting that. Yeah, what we have is a minor tax issue.
So even the implication here is that they are basically throwing out these more minor charges as bait to say, you know, to validate the idea that there really isn't that much.
You're right. We got him. Here he is. It was a tax issue. Yeah, that would be the best case scenario. Well, I mean, the best case scenario was just keeping a lid on this story forever, which they did try. I mean, they being not a cabal, but just a group of different people acting for various reasons. But now that's impossible. So this would be the next best outcome. Yeah, he's guilty of some
this is what's so hard
errors
about the declining trust in our institutions. Sitting here saying that, it's almost impossible to know whether or not this is truly the extent of what Hunter Biden could be charged with, and therefore it is a nothing burger, or that there's this conspiratorial other aspect of it where there's more, but Biden is working behind the scenes to pull strings and protect his son. And the possibility of the more paranoid option is always looming out there if you don't have a fundamental respect in institutions.
Well, right, but the institutions are not. I mean, but the institutions, when they're not worthy of our respect, and I don't know that I think that Joe Biden is necessarily pulling strings to get Hunter off the hook or something, or is shielding him in any way beyond like providing emotional support. I mean, we hear those phone calls, which are kind of heart-wrenching.
Yeah, he's a good dad.
The issue is I don't trust the investigators themselves, the institutions. It goes back to the institutions. Like the FBI seems inclined to do things or to shield, to not look as closely at Hunter Biden and look very closely to, does Trump have any documents that are unclassified? Like, let's commit more resources to that investigation. Those kinds of subtle biases that I think have reached a tipping point where national law enforcement investigators, intelligence apparatuses, they're so pathologically, they're very anti-Trump. And I don't trust their judgment on these matters, even without being explicitly directed by Joe Biden to do anything.
I hear that, and I understand why, but also isn't it possible that Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, deserves more resources than a president's son? Is it possible that Donald Trump did more wrongdoing and that had more national security implications than Hunter Biden? I think that is also possible, and it is very difficult to read inferences into the tiny pieces of the investigatory pie that we're being exposed to right now. And I'm not arguing one way or the other here. I'm just saying that I can feel the dangerous pull of what it is like to live in this limbo, where the fundamental skepticism about what is going on in government leads people to jump to the worst conclusion no matter what. And on some level, Psaki is accidentally right here, that no matter what anybody says in the media about any of this, a lot of folks have made up their mind because they feel like all they can trust is their gut, or all they can trust is the political figure that they resonate with, whether that's Donald Trump or Joe Biden or someone in between.
It's the statement that 50 or however many it was former top FBI and law enforcement officials saying jointly their gut reaction to the Hunter Biden laptop story is, don't pay any attention to this. This is fake and was planted by Russia. That's a pretty damn strong indicator that we cannot necessarily trust the people in this community to handle this thing correctly. That would be the thing I would point to as most eyebrow raising.
But does that necessarily mean?
No, it doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, you're right. We're just firearms. We're just civilians. We're just trying to make what we can of this. But there have been a lot of screw-ups on this issue, with a lot of institutional screw up, a lot of individual screw up.
Let me ask you this: would you expect there to be? I mean, obviously we've had a lot of high-profile leaks over the past 10 years or so. So much of what we know about that has caused much of the left and right to be distrustful of government, with these NSA leaks and the like, came from the inside. Do you think at a certain point, if there really were significant dirt about Hunter Biden, there would be an expectation that there are enough people of ideological diversity within the government that we'd find out about it? How likely is it that there's a real red herring that's been simmering for years now that we still don't know about?
Well, but there have been leaks. I mean, a whistleblower came forward. We talked about it on the show a couple weeks ago. I think came to Senator Ron Johnson or someone with information about how the FBI had decided not to investigate the Hunter Biden, or to really take its time on that. The answer to your question... No,
not about the level of the investigation, but whether or not something has been found and covered up. Because isn't that the implication here, that they're charging him with the lower crimes to avoid the optics of a bigger brouhaha? Yeah.
Well, I would say to that, I mean, the laptop information has been available for years, and it took a very, very, very long time for the mainstream media to even take an appreciation. Like, this stuff takes longer on the Hunter Biden front because so many of the reporters are way more interested in Trump stuff. So that would be a possible explanation for that. I take your point, but like, it took them this long to even acknowledge that the laptop was real. So maybe another 5 years from now, they'll say, we have the smoking gun for all the influence peddling Hunter was doing. Honestly.
Sure. I mean, it could be. I get it.
All right. More Rising after this. Stay with us.